Okay, so let's look at what Chavetz and Courtois call the post-traumatic properties of countertransference. Difficulty in maintaining appropriate boundaries. That's one of the biggest problems that I come across in the case consultations that I provide, is that there are problems in the boundary relationship between the client and the therapist. And it's either a lack of boundaries, boundary crossing, or overly rigid boundaries, or inflexible boundaries. I mean, there's many different ways we can have boundary problems, and that's, I think, really needing to sort of like see how that can be related to our countertransference. Trying to fix it for people, getting caught up in the victim, rescuer and perpetrator triangle, which we'll be talking about later. And reacting negatively to borderline type behaviours. And I say that because it's, you know, that whole diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. I do have a problem with the connotations and how clients can be treated who exhibit those kinds of behaviours. But I'm just going to give you an example of something that I reacted to as part of my countertransference with a client. In 2008, the end of 2008, early December, after 20 odd years of working in trauma, I had the first horrifying experience of a client committing suicide. And it was absolutely devastating. I don't know if any of you have also had that experience. It was very devastating. And I was trying my best to, you know, support myself and process through that information and experience. And clients, of course, leading up to Christmas, generally start to decompensate in very major ways. And so I'm dealing with the fact that my client has suicided and having contact with this client's family, and I've got a caseload of clients who are merrily decompensating on their way towards Christmas. And one particular client who was exhibiting a lot of suicidal ideation, she was decompensating, accusing me of abandoning her, and I should be available after hours, and it wasn't fair or reasonable that I was on leave. All the things that we hear, you know, a lot, and that normally I would be able to take in my stride. On this particular occasion, it was, I reacted very badly. You know, I was controlling. I felt very angry towards her, and I knew that I had really mismanaged that situation. And again, I think it's really needing to understand this can happen to any of us at any time. So what I did, I just absolutely stepped into the triangle and became the perpetrator. We need to really sort of like monitor those things sort of very closely, as well as just sort of like being aware of our own humanness too. One of the most helpful things I heard at a conference very, very early on with me working in this area was a line that Richard Clough said. And he said that the therapist should never be working harder than the client. And if you are, you're entering into a countertransference response. And Courtois and Chavetz said that if you find yourself doing or wanting to do things for or with your client that you would not normally do, you are entering into a countertransference response. And these kinds of responses may be things like accepting or making frequent lengthy phone calls between sessions, disclosing personal information about your own trauma, loaning or giving money or gifts to clients, going out for a meal or a coffee with clients, or entering into a personal or sexual relationship. And that may all sound very horrific to you, but I'm here to tell you that it can happen a lot. It's not as uncommon as we would like to think.
I haven't heard a pin drop in that session this morning, which says that you're all engaged with what Naomi is presenting, and I'm certainly being drawn right into the presentation.